Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me here in Texas on the Where's Shmee US Edition Tour with the Shelby GT500, today at the home of Hennessey. I've been to visit a few times, but today is going to be about putting my GT500 onto their dyno to see how much power it makes. Up to this point, I've now driven the car a couple of thousand miles, and in fact yesterday I took it to a local Ford dealership to have the oil change service so that it's fully good to go, broken in, ready to be driven in anger, and that is exactly what we're going to start doing by taking it to Hennessey's new dyno setup, putting it through the paces, seeing whether it makes the claimed 760 horsepower, but also heading out to their private track area to go and have a little bit of fun with some of the things that this car can do. So let's find out then what it does on the dyno. This car has been eating up the miles so far. It's got about 2,500 in total on the clock, of which about 2,200 have been on this trip alone since we left from Miami, driving up through Florida into Georgia, then across through Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, and here to Texas, where the GT500 has come to visit Hennessey. Now, I've been here a few times myself, but never with one of my own cars. They've actually significantly expanded since my last visit. A whole new section for the builds of the Venom F5s coming up, also expanded capacity, and some new dynos, which is exactly where we're going to be taking this to see whether that 5.2 litre supercharged V8 that claims 760 horsepower going through the 7-speed DCT all to the rear wheels makes the claimed power, whether it falls just short, whether it makes a little bit more. We are going to be finding out today, and I guess we're going to be hearing a lot of the sound out of this thing as well, and boy does it make a good noise. I can tell you now that I'm driving it a little bit more in track mode, it truly comes to life. And I always like with the Shmee-mobiles to follow the braking in process as you're supposed to do so, and it's often recommended with these that you do some miles, then you get the oil change service before you drive it in anger, and of course that is exactly what today is all about. Let's get it fired up, over to the dyno and go see what happens. As I was saying, on the dash, 2,487 miles. It was about 200 miles ago that we had the oil change service, so I've been building up a little bit into it since then, but basically we can now drive without fearing things because it's running. And like I say, I like to do this properly, follow the book, do things as you should. So the dyno is up here, he says. We'll pull the car straight on in and go get this set up. Into the dyno room we go. So this side is the two-wheel dyno. There's also a four-wheel dyno in the adjacent bay. But obviously this is where my car is going to be put through its paces. It's got a full tank of regular 93 octane, so pump gas, nothing fancy on that side. But we're expecting, I guess, wheel horsepower. This is the kind of place your bets before we do it. Maybe 675, that kind of thing. Obviously there are some drivetrain losses, crankshaft to wheel. We'll see what it does. The power plant, big supercharger sitting on top of the V8. This is, of course, what today is all about. And I do quite like how you get the hand built with pride GT500 badge, one on top of the engine supercharger. The car is all strapped down now then. Of course, Hennessey put a lot of big power cars on these dynos. We've got the fans blowing for the cooling up front with the engine. When it's going to be running, it's going to be running very hard. DCT, minimal power losses. Let's see, I'm super intrigued now to find out what this is going to do in just a moment. I do know that it's going to sound epic. With the fans blowing, it doesn't actually sound all that loud. It will basically get a quick run just to lock it all in, make sure it's fully secured, everything will be restrapped. And then I want to find out a little bit more about the driving modes and things as well. That shift noise is awesome. It's on the move. Time to do the runs and time for me to take a step or two back because we know this is going to get very, very loud. Proper American muscle V8. That already sounds epic. It's very windy here today at the moment. Going up through the gears. Wow. That sounded epic. That's a factory exhaust. That is a big part of why I bought this car. It just sounds incredible. The car's off, the fans are off as well. It's a little bit quieter, but come and have a look then at the numbers and the chart here. This is impressive. Max power, 697.94 horsepower, so 698, just shy of 700. Now factoring in some drivetrain losses, if you had about 15%, that would mean you'd expect this to make about 680. To be 18 horsepower over that means we're talking a car with somewhere in the region of 780 horsepower, just shy of 800. They have given a little bit of margin for error there, making a touch more power than the car claims. Right up, obviously, towards the very top end, we've got max torque of 554.17 pounds-foot. Seeing all of the numbers, max power at 7,530 RPM as well. So, numbers achieved on the first run. Not a bad innings at all. I guess we'll get it unstrapped, then take it on out to go have some fun. Now that all is done with the dyno, I promised that we would go and have some fun. Hennessey have a private track here where we can accelerate flat out, try the car's line lock, see what that is like in this GT500, and just generally make a lot of noise. Now then, let's put this car into track mode. I've been having a little bit of a play. Obviously, track mode in here makes everything significantly firmer. We get a different display on the dashboard, it gets a lot louder. We're gonna go into manual, and track mode with the exhaust, with the variable exhaust, gets silly loud. But just out here is the Hennessey Proving Ground, where I can tell you, oh, that crack sounds good. The more you drive a car hard, the better the sound gets. Yeah, I'm feeling the suspension. But out here will be an opportunity to finally be a little bit leirier with this car as we make our way. Goodness. This gets a move on. The numbers build up very, very, very fast. We just have to slow down for a little bit of a jump. Wait until we're on a straight and the numbers just absolutely shoot. Wow, and it sounds so good. It sounds so good. Obviously, track mode also puts the traction control into a more track focused setup, but now with the big straight opening up, have a look at the numbers. 100 miles an hour, 135, obviously the fastest that this car has ever driven. Man, that's cool. Dual clutch gearbox, you can just bang it through the gears. But we're actually going to have a little bit of fun now, trying the line lock. To do this then, we are currently in track mode at the start of the drag strip, but all you do is press the Cobra button here on the steering wheel. We then have track apps. Inside there we have line lock. You hold OK to initialize line lock, which effectively locks the front wheels, firmly engage the brake, press OK, and then you've got 15 seconds to make the most insane burnout. Suitably hilarious back at the start of the drag, and we certainly left some rubber there, where we began with a massive smoke cloud, which was introduced with the, I think, V8, the Mustang GT of this generation when it arrived. But in the case of this, when you've got a set of Sport Cup 2s on it, they absolutely burn up, and it's pretty easy. It is very much computer controlled. It locks the front axle, locks the brakes up at the front so that the rears can effectively spin freely, warm up the tyres, because if you were going then for your quarter-mile times, having a lot of grip from the rear obviously is going to help, especially with the fact that you have a very heavy power lump up front, not so much weight on the rear of the car, and therefore you can drive down a strip like this with one of these, the GT500, in something like 10.5 seconds or so, which is moderately crazy for a car. Obviously you would want the non-track pack to get rid of the extra drag that you have from the wing in those circumstances, but a car that starts in the low $70,000, it's about $72,000, I think 73, 74 for the next year cars, for a GT500 that can do quarter mile in the 10s, some smaller modifications can get you into the 9s, and you can do line lock, and you can do plenty of other fun stuff with it. Right, let's head back around. I think the next thing to try, pop it back into manual, is to do a launch control, one of the other track apps. There are so many different things that this car has through the Cobra button on the steering wheel that are super easy to use. I can tell you that going over some of these bumps the track suspension is very, very, very firm. But hey, the car is now broken in, so we can drive it as intended. And obviously this car is going to do everything. We've got track days ahead, we've got some drag races ahead, stay tuned for those. That bang from first to second is just awesome. When you've been holding the revs in first, and then you just release it into second. And you get the little pop out of the back of it. There would be very little point in changing this car's exhaust system. I don't think it would get dramatically louder. Building up the revs, building up the revs. Coming around then onto the main strip here. Let's give this a go. So back on the steering wheel with our Cobra button, we go into the track apps page where we have launch control. We can enable that. It will stay on, I think, when we've done it the first time. First time I've tried it in this car. It works very similarly to the Ford GT, where all you do now, nothing complicated, foot firmly on the brake, foot on the throttle, let go of the brake, take off. So I'm going to pop it into automatic, so it will automatically shift us. Prepare to hold on. This is going to be pretty fast. Build up the revs, 3,000 RPM, and go. Get the traction and take off. Wow! 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour. Woo! A car this heavy should not move that fast. It's 4,200 pounds, 1,900 and something kilos. Yet it does that. Yet it gets a move on with outrageous pace. So we're in the early stages, of course, with this. There's going to be a lot of fun to come ahead, but today we popped it up on the dyno, having had the oil change service in advance. We've seen how much power it makes, 698 horsepower, so about 780 or so at the crank, which is ridiculous for a stock factory Mustang. And now had some fun as well with the line locks, the launch controls, and just enjoying driving it a little bit more. We've come out to the track area, to an area of very dark tyre marks, so let's give this a go. Let's see what this is like. Brake the traction. Oh wow. That is one of the easiest cars to donut I've ever tried in my life, and that was with traction and sport. I didn't even have it fully off. My rear tyres are not going to be hanging about. I can tell you that right now. My gosh, that is very, very, very fun. Okay, it is time, I think, for this day of being slightly boisterous to come towards an end. You can't really do proper rolling burnouts in this thing. I'm just going to stab the throttle a little bit. Let's see what happens. These tyres are not going to last me very long now that this car is running and the fun is really beginning. Do you know what? It puts a smile on your face, and that's what it's all about. We're coming here and being out, kind of safe place to do this is obviously very important, and that's why I'm misbehaving quite so much with the car that we dynoed today. We started by dynoing it and then going out and misbehaving with it and having a lot of fun, and there's some more things to come as well. For now though, let's go just calm it down a notch. The only problem with doing that and earlier doing the line lock with the GT500 is that already it does not have that much tyre tread left on the rears. With a track day coming up, I am going to have to get those changed at some point. Not exactly the hardest thing to do, and to be honest, completely worth it to do it in what we now know is the 698 wheel horsepower Shelby GT500 here at Hennessey, out in the open space and nowhere near a crowd at an event. Exactly where it should be done, I think, today. A lot of fun though, experimenting, playing around, around using this car, now that it's running a little bit more how it was built to do so. Of course, coming up, we'll have some drag races, we'll have some track action, and plenty more as we continue on the tour. Thousands of miles still to come as we continue a little bit more around Texas, heading up and across towards the West Coast as well. An awesome day though here at Hennessey, having now come out with one of my own cars. I did come and stop off at Hennessey when I was here with the Ford GT, but I actually had the car being transported on a long slog, and I flew here as an interim stopgap before continuing on myself to meet up with the car at its next destination. Today though, we've come out with the GT500, and what a day it has been. A huge thanks to Hennessey as always, guys. Do check out their YouTube channel as well for plenty more. For now though, that is all, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!